I don't know why 50 is magical, except for that it's half of 100, and it feels somewhat special to be on an ordinal, divisionable by 10 sort of number. But happy 50th episode, everybody. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, and yeah, I'm here. Woo! Exactly. Thank you for the excitement. Oh, look at all of the little. What is this? Like a little party popper thing? Yeah, nice. Thanks, Joey. I can't read Korean, Mac, but thanks. And hey, Afid, how's it going? Welcome, welcome. Um, I don't know what that means. Um, that is one of my fallbacks, or not my fallbacks. One of my faults. I don't know very much Korean. Okay, I could say that, but I would have to work out the phonetics of it. And I would also need to know where the accent is, the accent syllable. I don't know all of the Korean accent, like the syllable accents thing. We'll get your Korean up to speed after we get you up to speed in Japanese. Thanks, Mac. I appreciate that. I was not aware that you were so good at the Korean. I probably should have bothered you more in the preparation for this stream. But all of that is beside itself. So hello, everybody, and welcome to Adventures in History. My name is Shane McInnes. I am the host of Adventures in History, where we talk about history stuff, and we talk about history stuff in a fun way that is not boring, or at least I don't think it's boring. You might think it's horrible. But yeah, and we've been going now for almost a year. We're on episode number 50 of our main series. Now we've got viewer request series and some other special stuff here and there, so this is not my 50th stream, but this is an important mark. It seems like just the other day we were talking about the 20th episode or the 10th episode. It's been a fun ride, and I appreciate all of you coming along with it, or coming along with me for it. And yeah, so tonight we're talking about Korea, which is an interesting topic for me. I really enjoy Korean history, and I think that it's one of these sets of history that gets left behind a lot in what we would consider Western culture. A lot of people probably don't hear about Korea very much at all. Perhaps when talking about ancient China and China expanding to take over Korea, but probably not until a more modern period of time when it starts getting involved in things like World War I and World War II, and then the Korean War after World War II. So, and of course today it's frequently in the headlines. It was just in the headlines about a week ago because the dictator Kim Jong-un of North Korea decided to shoot off some missiles. So yeah, where does all this stuff come from? And we're going to pick up pretty far back. We're actually going to start with a bit of a primer. Oh, Autumn. Yes, he is a dictator. Not. Well, I'll just leave it at that. What's up, man? Welcome, welcome. Oh, silliness. Bit of a bad timing on your part. You have to walk the dog. Oh wow, that's unfortunate. It's raining cats though, so I don't think she'll be out too long. I don't know if you did that on purpose, Joey, but if you did, I don't know if I can laugh at that. All right, so yeah, it's been a weird week for me. I was more or less feeling okay on Tuesday when we streamed, but the stomach bug that I thought I was over. I guess I should start at the beginning. Hey, Grathar, what's up, man? Welcome. I feel like I got a bit of a stomach bug over the weekend, and I had some gastrointestinal unease for Sunday afternoon and part of Monday, but I thought I was over it, and I ate normally on Tuesday, and it turns out that I was not over it, and I'm still not completely over it. Tuesday was not a fun night. I woke up. Romans,
countrymen,
lend me your ears.
come to bury Caesar, not to praise him.
Hey, congrats on the vaccination. I'm glad that people are still finding ways to get in. And welcome, Ethan. Hope you're having a good one. I was just explaining the scenario of what's happened this week. So Tuesday night, I did not sleep very well. I was up most of the night with stomach stuff. I went to work on Wednesday because I had classes to teach, and didn't eat very much yesterday, and got home around right around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3:45, and I went to sleep. And then I slept about 14 hours, which is a long time for me. Normally I sleep about 5 or 6 and then I'm good. So I slept about twice as long plus some as I normally do. And still don't feel 100%. But I had a sandwich for lunch today, and it stayed with me longer than previous meals had, but about 1:45 or about 13:45 hours, I started feeling pretty rough again. So I came on home and I rested up a little bit. So I am super sleepy right now. I am excited to be here, but I'm going to have to admit, I'm probably going to say a lot of dumb stuff tonight. My brain has been very floaty, and I've been sort of stream of consciousness talking, which I've heard is rather humorous to listen to because it doesn't always make sense, but we'll see what happens. I've got myself a big cup of coffee here, and hopefully that will hold me through. Oh yeah, man, I'm a stubborn guy. I don't like canceling things. I'm probably too stubborn for my own good. But yeah, let's have some fun and talk about Korea. I'm really excited to talk about Korea. So I can't pass that opportunity up, right? Plus, we've got stuff stacked up for next week already, so I can't very well just start putting stuff off, right? All right, so this guy right here is our Korean peninsula, and we have mentioned Korea a few times here and there as we've talked about other places. When we were talking about human migration, we mentioned Korea getting populated somewhere in the probably 35, maybe 30,000 year range. Probably safe to say that that's a safe estimate. Now, some people want to back that up to like 40,000 because they want to back the population of China up to about 20,000. I don't know. We won't have to go into that whole stuff. If you want to know more about human migration, you're free to watch the VOD on human migration. We've also mentioned Korea a couple of times when discussing China, because Korea being bordered right here by China is going to be sort of in that sphere of influence, and there's going to be a lot of overlap during this period of history between China and Korea. And we'll talk about China again tonight as we focus on Korea. But we do want to start back where it starts, right? Now, we won't do the full rundown going into every little bit of culture because that would take several different streams. And also, if you're super interested in stuff, I always encourage people to remember that you are able to request streams for viewer request episodes. So if you hear something that you like and you feel like you might want to hear some more about that, next time we have a viewer request open, might be something you want to sneak in there. All right, so I've called this the Korean History Primer, and we're going to sort of hit the high points of the wave tops here for just a second, sort of scooting through all of Korean prehistory. So the prehistory phase in Korea actually dates back before Homo sapiens, going all the way back to the the Paleolithic age. So you start seeing stone tools used by early hominins in Korea all the way back around 500,000 BC. So that's even about 270, 280,000 years before human beings are even Homo sapiens. We're still talking about stuff like, at that time, Homo heidelbergensis, some of the descendants of heidelbergensis, perhaps, those, especially the ones in Asia, being the Denisovan people. Now, the toolkits that you see over there are pretty similar to a lot of other things that we see in places like China. So this is not a pocket culture by themselves, but you definitely do see early hominins hanging around in this area before Homo sapiens do show up. When we get to around 8,000 or so BC, we start seeing the first signs of physical human culture that distinguish themselves from stone tools in a period that is called the Julman period. Yeah, I know you don't like that. For some program that thinks that it knows all of the words, it's cocky enough to call itself Word. It doesn't know a lot of words, this Microsoft program. Jerks. All right, so the Chulmun period here, and I should note the J in Korean is not pronounced like a sort of a soft J like we have, like jam or June. It's more of a kind of like a TCH sound, which gets you there eventually. And if you said Julmun period, people would know what you're talking about. And I'm not going to claim that my Korean pronunciation is super on point. I did try to do my diligence and listen to native people say all these words if I could find occurrences, and then look at your fun little translation guides where your symbols get, you got all those weird little things that line up with your English letters and what it sounds like. Like, this is the E. Okay, I'm doing that thing. I gotta shut up and let me show you pictures. How about that? Boom! There we go. There's some pot for you. Now I'm going to get in trouble with Twitch for mentioning pot. I should say pottery. Here's some pottery for you. This is from the Chulman period, and the particular things that we want to look at here that distinguish this period from others are these neat little comb marks. And in fact, the name of the period comes from this sort of comb marked period, stripy pattern thing that you see here. Let me zoom in a little bit and get ourselves a bit of a more zoomed in look. So you can see here we've got these nice little stripe lines. Pretty cool stuff. You got these big wide mouths. Let me show you another one here. This one's a little bit fancier. It's a little bit later in the period, but it also has, again, those nice marks made with something that looks like a hair comb. So there you go. Same similar stuff around the rim here. So these pieces are really honkin' old, and these stretch back as far as 8,000 BC. So they are in both incredibly good shape for something that old, but they're also very elaborate for that period of time. If you compare these types of pottery to other types of pottery that you might find in other areas of the world at the same time, these are pretty advanced overall. And there are some archaeologists that want to claim that the pottery that you might find around the Korea region is actually the oldest pottery in the world. I don't know if I can completely back that idea. I would definitely say that it is in the oldest range of pottery, but I don't know if it is the oldest pottery, period. Definitely the fact that it has reached this level of skill so early in the timeline is a designator that people were doing pottery in this area pretty far back in history. But that's pretty cool stuff, and I always like to show artifacts when I can. I've never been to Korea, by the way. I've had a couple of friends that have been there and have really enjoyed it. I've had one friend that is still living there at the moment teaching English, and she's really having a good time. I would love to go to Korea. There's a lot of cool history there. So we don't really know exactly how old this pottery stuff is when they start making it, but the 8000 BC range is a comfortable starting spot. By the time you start seeing small villages, usually with pit houses, you're going to get up to about the 6000 year mark BC. A pit house, by the way, is when you just dig out a circle and then you use the pit to support braces for your walls. These are pretty common dwelling places for Neolithic peoples. You're going to start seeing some early evidence of agriculture around the 3500 BC mark, and they're mostly going to be growing millet at that point. Millet is a grain that's not really that good for eating. It has a pretty low caloric content, and you have to eat a lot of it to really get something out of it, for food. You have to eat a lot to get the food that you need to survive, which is why at that 3500 mark, they're still doing a lot of hunting and gathering. And one of the things that they're really relying on, because of their location so close to the water, is a lot of fishing and shellfish. One of the things that you see a lot during this period that's actually historical and archaeological fun stuff to discover are these big mounds of shells. It turns out that people in the ancient world like to fish in the same places that they know that there are things, and they like to dump their shells in the same place. So sometimes you find these big mounds of things like oyster shells that designate that ancient people lived there. So pretty cool stuff to hang out and see. There are similar shell mounds and stuff like that even here in the United States, not too far away from me, about an hour south of me on the Gulf of Mexico. You can find some Native American shell mounds. So these are pretty common things that your hunter-gatherer people are pretty commonly going to make. But by the time you get to about 2000 BC, this is the sort of tipping point where people in the Korean peninsula and just north of that figure out how to grow different types of food, and especially here, rice. Rice has a higher caloric content and is easier to grow, so you can both grow more of it and require less of it to eat, which means that you can create a food surplus. That's your magical point. When you hit that magic food surplus, some people don't have to farm all the time, and you can start building things like governments. So we're going to leave the Julman period behind, and we're going to move into another one called the Mumun. And it's going to tell me that this is wrong too. Yeah, shush word. Okay, so the Mumun period. And this is sometimes referred to as the Korean Bronze Age, but that's a little bit of a slippery slope designation, because you're going to see a pretty substantial cultural change moving from hunter-gatherer or semi-hunter-gatherer to permanent dwelling places. But you're not really going to see iron show up for about another maybe 1,000 to 1,200 years. So if you call it the Bronze Age, you're leaving out a big chunk of this period. So you don't really need bronze unless you're in competition with other people very much. Otherwise, you're mostly just using it for decoration. But you do see a lot of changes. You start seeing clan structures show up. You start seeing chieftains. And we know that there are chieftains and class designations during this period of time, because we start seeing different types of burials. And this is pretty common if you've hung around and if you've heard me talk about other cultures in the past, you'll know that you get the fancy tomb, it means you're the fancy person, because everybody wants to be remembered in the afterlife, right? So you build yourself a big fancy tomb. And if you're in Tolkien, you start worrying more about what people think of you after death than you do while they're alive, and you end up causing Numenor to crash into the ocean, which is what happens in the Second Age. But that's for a different stream. Just felt like I had to throw something nerdy in there while I was talking about something else nerdy to remind everybody exactly how nerdy I was. You gotta you got to mix it up every now and then, right? All right, so you start seeing different graves and grave goods. You start seeing burial mounds being made, and you also see big changes in their pottery styles. So here we go. Boom. This is a Mamun period piece of pottery, and you could tell right away that it's got a lot of different stuff going for it. First off, it has this neat little base down here. This rimmed base is actually an incredibly important technological innovation. It allows the pot here to stand up and a weak spot to be braced by the little walls of the base, and you have this nice lip here. This is clearly going to be able to hold more. It's more uniform in thickness. Lots of good development here on our pottery. Now, it is the period where we do get bronze, but it's not really until about 700 BC. So again, from about 2000 or so BC all the way through about 700 BC in Korea, you're going to have big cultural change, and people are going to start living in small villages or maybe even what we might call towns. And you're not going to get bronze until about 700 BC, which again sort of gives it a weird thing if you just go after this and start calling it the Bronze Age of Korea. The whole kind of the concept of Iron Age and Bronze Age, that's something that was made up by European people to describe European history and Near Eastern history. And as they explored more stuff archaeologically in Asia, they always sort of try to force this like Western culture mindset, and they try to make everything cram into the cookie cutter that they already know. And it doesn't always work, and that's okay, because we don't have to have delineated Bronze Ages for everything out there, right? We're all just people, and we develop differently. When's the last time you've made something out of bronze? That's a fair question, right? Are you in your Bronze Age? I'm still in my plastic age, because I'm still playing with models. So I've never made anything out of bronze. What kind of Neolithic person am I? Right? Okay. So by the time we get to about 1500, though, I'm sorry, about 500 BC. Good gracious, see, I'm losing it. By the time we get to about 500 BC, the bronze work that had been made initially as pretty things like bronze vases and things to drink out of and stuff to use in religious ceremony and really cool pieces of jewelry. Well, it turns out you can actually make other stuff out of bronze, and you can make pokey things out of bronze like these guys. These are examples of bronze daggers from the Korean Mumun period. And you can see here, this is part of a cast, where they were making cast bronze. So these are sometimes called leaf-shaped daggers. Sometimes they're called violin-shaped daggers. But there's actually a whole culture that is sort of grown up around these that you might, if you know anything about Korean history, you may have heard of the bronze dagger culture. And these are pieces of those. And you can see here that they would have had handles. This would have been attached to a piece of wood or maybe a piece of bone or something that was decorative and nice and pretty to look at. You know, the cool stuff. Because when you're stabbing somebody in ancient Korea, you want to be fashionable. Oh, are you stabbing me with the Gucci knife? Oh, no, this is the Louis Vuitton knife. Oh, well, I feel honored that you would stab me with that. I would not encourage you to stab anybody, by the way. That was a bit of a joke, an attempt at lightening the mood. Leaf, violin, they have pokey end either way, right? Always a good thing when stabbing people. Always to be in the fashion. Don't stab people. Stabbing people is wrong. You should not stab people. Don't do that. Don't do that at all. Okay, so during this period of time, at the very end of the Mumun period, you're going to see a lot of fighting going on. They figured out how to make bronze weapons. That's going to create substantial amounts of competition, and that's going to start turning your larger settlements into fortified cities. And some of these fortified cities have palisades where you would cut down a whole bunch of trees and make a big sort of tree line that you would bury around your city. Others are full out walls. Unless they try to stab you first. Right. If they try to kill you, you try to kill them right back. Anybody? Anybody? I tell the kids that every day and still stab. Oh, Kelly. But you have art supplies in your room. Also, hey, Kelly, how's it going? I hope you're having a good one. If there's anything we've learned from history, it's that stabbing people achieves nothing. We've been talking about a lot of stabbing lately, though. Lots of stabby things. All art supplies are essentially one child's arm reach away from being a stabby thing. Here we go, stabbing again. See, this is clearly what I need to do to get the audience more involved. Just more frequently involve stabbing in the conversation. So by the time we get to the 500s, fighting is pretty evident. You're starting to see some of these chieftains get pretty organized, and you see them moving towards what we might even call city-state periods. But one interesting thing happens around this period of time, and that is some migration stuff. So during the period here, you're going to see people from Korea make their way over to Japan. And there had already been a migration of Korean people over to Japan a little bit earlier, but one of the things that this is going to do for Japan is actually introduce some of the metalworking to Japan, because prior to that point, Japan did not have metalworking. So stabbing equals fun. I disagree. Being stabbed, not so much. Nobody wants to be stabbed, right? I don't know. There might be somebody out there that wants to be stabbed. I don't know. Anyway, so this is going to have impacts on Japan, and eventually we'll get to talk about Japan. Probably, I don't know if it'll be in the next phase, or maybe the one after. See, the thing about Japan is that they organize as a civilization really late. Their first kingdoms aren't really until the AD period, and a lot of people think Japan has been that way for 5,000 years. Well, there are very few places that have been that way for 5,000 years. Now, Japan has people, and they've been out there for tens of thousands of years, but their organization is actually really late in the game. Stop king shaming. Okay. Moving along, Korea. Alrighty, let's get a little bit of a zoom in here now that we're talking about Korea. Okie dokie. So, what becomes of the Mamun period? Well, what ends up happening is that these city-states end up fighting with each other. And when city-states start fighting with each other, eventually some city-states start conquering other ones, and we actually end up with our first recognizable kingdom inside of Korea, and that is the Kojoseon. And it wants me to spell it like this, but it's actually written like this. Word, hush word, go away word, ignore. The Kojoseon, and I know that's spelled with a G, but we all know that the G's and K's and things are roughly interchangeable. And the EU or EON here makes like a sound, so Kojoseon. Welcome back, Joey. Hope the walking went well. So this is a kingdom that starts, let me show you the map first, and then we'll talk about how it potentially starts. So if we look at the map, boom, I was going to have a map, right? Like everybody knew I was going to have a map. We weren't getting through this without showing maps. So here we go. Now you see this thing down here called Qin, but that's actually more of a confederacy, and we'll talk about that one in a little bit. We do see Han Dynasty China over here, which we've mentioned, and we do see the Xianbei Empire over here, which we have mentioned before. I'm okay. I'm very weak, and my brain is kind of loopy, and I feel almost like I don't actually know. I've never been high before, but I feel like if this is what high is, I can understand maybe why people want to be like this way, because it kind of feels loopy. I'm not endorsing doing drugs, by the way, Twitch, TOS people. I'm not saying do drugs, and I'm not doing drugs on stream. I'm sleep deprived, and I've eaten like one full meal in the last 2 days. Getting that good esoteric ancient monk high where you sit on top of a mountain and you meditate for 4 days until you see a vision. That's what I'm going for. That's what I'm going for. See, I spun this history-wise. You see what I did there? Anyway, so there's your Kojosun kingdom. So the story here of the founding of this kingdom is actually fairly interesting. The story goes like this. There was this god who decided that he wanted to go down to Earth. And he went down to Earth with some of the other minor deities, and there's some other, kind of living, and some of the gods have other gods, and, they get together and make other gods. But eventually, there's this sort of patron god here in Korea, and some animals approach him, and they go, man, we really want to be humans. And he's like, well, I can make you humans because I have magical powers and everything. And two of the animals, there's a tiger and a bear, and the tiger and the bear say, yeah, well, okay, so make us humans, do your magic. And he's like, well, so first you've got to pass a test, and you got to go over into this cave, and you got to hang out in this cave for like a few weeks. And if you can make it for this period of time in this cave, after only eating garlic and mugwort, two plants, right? If you can make it that long just on that diet, I'll turn you into humans. And so they're like, okay, this sounds like a great thing. So the tiger and the bear go over to the cave, and they start hanging out in the cave, and they're eating garlic and they're eating mugwort. And the tiger's like, man, this kind of sucks. I quit. So the tiger like bugs out and is like, forget this junk. I wanna go. But the bear makes it through, and this is some diet, right? So the bear makes it through and goes to the deity, and is like, check it out, I made it through. And the deity's like, that's awesome. So he turns the bear into a woman. And the woman's like, okay, that's cool, but now I want a baby, because that's what humans do, right? And so she gets real sad that she can't find a husband. And so the god takes pity on her, and he's like, well, check it out. Look, I'll marry you, right? And then we can have a kid together. And she's like, that sounds absolutely amazing. And the kid that they have, I mean, that's what all women want, really, right? The kid that they have is this guy, whose name is Tangun. And he is supposedly the founder of the Kojosun kingdom. And this is supposedly all the way back in 2333 BC. So, yeah. Now, I know that seems like an interesting little story, and I do believe that is an interesting story. I do want to point out a couple of things, though. If you were hanging around the stream by any chance when we were doing Japanese and Ainu mythology, and you remember that Ainu people believed that the bear was sort of the one of the highest gods, and that the Ainu people were descended from bears, you might go, well, that sounds a lot like the Korean story that we just learned here. And if we look at this as a sort of a regional thing, you know, the Ainu people live around over here and on some of these islands and over here. That's not too terribly far away from this northern part of Korea where the Kojoseon was. So the story that we have here of this god coming in out of the sky and taming this bear and making this bear eat agricultural products actually has a potential to really explain what happens in this region, because we know that there were some people moving around here, and it looks like the people that had the higher level of organized agricultural culture moved into an area that was predominantly hunter-gatherer stuff, where they were more shamanistic and maybe worshipped bears and not anthropomorphic deities. So the story contains within it this neat little element that a lot of people might look over, of how agriculture tames the shamanistic deities, and that the rulers of this kingdom are descended from both of these traditions, from the people that worshipped the bear and the people that worshipped the sky gods and the thunder gods and the rain gods. So interesting stuff here. I love stories about how our civilization started by some gods slumming it. That happens a lot, Kelly. That happens a lot. And we'll talk more about interesting deity origins with modern humans in just a bit, because we haven't even gotten to the magical horse from the sky that lays an egg. And that wasn't me being weirdy brained. That actually is what they say. So we'll get to that story in just a bit. Yeah, magical horse gods from the sky. I am so ready. Okay, so again, the claim here is that this kingdom started in 2333 BC. But there's not really a lot of evidence to support that. What we do know is that somewhere around 600 BC, we start seeing reference to Kojoseon as a region in Korea, and we see this in Chinese texts, where Chinese people are going up into this area and trading with these people. This would have been during the Zhou dynasty. So you see them being referenced, but it's not as a kingdom. It's more of, there's this area over that way. Creation myths, wild stuff. You read that in Johnny Carson's voice. Good stuff. So when do we actually start seeing them show up contextually with a boundary that's expanding with a centralized government? Well, around the 300s BC. So the transition after the Mumun period and into this Gojoseon kingdom happens somewhere around that, right around the 300 mark. Now, were there people that were chieftains in that area that went on to become kings in that area? Most likely so. But was there an unbroken line of rulers that goes all the way back to 2333 BC? That's a lot harder to say. There are people that believe that. There are people that are rather, sort of erudite scholarship people that put that forward as a concept. I do have to start noting here, around this period of time, there is a considerable amount of what we might call debate about some of the views on how Korean history goes. And part of this is because the Korean people in general have had a somewhat tumultuous relationship with the Chinese people in general. And if we look even back into history, we can see pretty clearly that Korean sources are rather biased against China, and Chinese sources are rather biased against Korea. And then when Japan shows up, they're biased against everybody else. Ancient alien scholars are out there in the world too. Aliens. But even in modern day, there is a bit of debate about some of this, and it sort of comes out of an interesting place. And I do feel like I need to talk about this now because it's going to come up a couple of times as we go through the rest of this debate. The archaeology in North Korea is state run, meaning it's run basically by the government, and state edited, meaning that it is specifically designed to fit a certain narrative. So you can find Korean archaeologists that publish things about some of this material, and they have very particular viewpoints that are interestingly built, and I think I just want to probably leave it at that. So if you're going to get into a lot of sort of deep dive scholarship, which I know everybody is dying to do, you're just dying for me to shut this stream off so that you can go dig into the databases and read every published article about that from that's out there. So Hermit Nation, like a chicken that you spun around your head, but it just stands there stupid and can't function. Heard it explained like that in a documentary. Well, North Korea is run by a totalitarian dictator that does not want to look bad, that wants to make sure that everything that comes out of the country fits a particular narrative that keeps him and his family in charge. So there's a lot of bias there. And you're not going to get anything that comes out of North Korea for about the last 40 years that is not absolutely inundated by that particular state view of everything. It's propaganda, right? So that being said, there are some people that will publish stuff that is way on board with the 2,333 thing. Okie doke. So what's going on? Well, they are expanding, they are growing, and what ends up happening is that the Gojoseon kingdom runs into China. And it specifically runs into the Yan province of China, which stretches right up here. It's the sort of area that reaches around the bay right here. I wonder if we can click on borders and zoom in and find the Yan. Well, I mean, the borders today are not going to be the borders. Yeah. The Yan province used to be right here, and Beijing used to be the capital of it. So the provinces today are different. And I knew that as soon as I zoomed in, but I was like, I'm going to zoom in anyway. Because I felt like zooming in. Gosh dang it. You let me zoom in. Anyway, so right around the border here. And the Yan Kingdom is going to be a little bit upset that these Koreans are sort of moving in on the territory. So there's going to be a war somewhere in the 200s BC. The Yan Chinese and the Gojoseon are going to go to war, and the Gojoseon gets beaten pretty badly. So much so that they move their capital city, which used to be sort of over here in this area. They move it back down into the peninsula to a modern day city that's called Pyongyang, which is right here. I am arrived. Welcome. Hope you're having a good one, my friend. So Pyongyang actually becomes the Korean capital city all the way back in the 200s. Oop, wrong one. Sorry. That 200s range BC. What I meant to do was turn this off, and I'm clicking buttons randomly. Nothing important ever becomes Pyongyang. Yep. Well, except for all that stuff that does. So they also end up giving up a lot of land, and this is going to put them on the Chinese radar. And for a while, the Han Dynasty of China is having some, well, during the period of time that they were fighting with the Yan, that was actually during the period of time where Shi Huangdi was unifying China and established the Qin. dynasty, but eventually the Qin dynasty falls apart and the Han take over. And the Han still remember that the Koreans are up there, and they're still having a lot of contact with them, and there's still trade moving around. But the thing that's going to really kind of set off this issue is that the Han are going to want to take over Korea. The Han dynasty at that point was expanding, and there was a governor up here in the Yan province, and his name was Wee Mon. He was Wee Mon. I just thought of that. I don't know if he was short or not. A guy in a goofy hat says crazy stuff at the world. Is that a description of me? If so, I'll take it. Anyway, Wee Mon is a Han governor / general, and the emperor of the Han Empire sends him over into Korea to take them over and add them to the Han dynasty, the territory that the Han control. But Wee Mon manages to go over to that area, and he runs into a guy that's the king of this region. So he's of Yan. And the guy that's the king is a guy named King Jun of Kojoseon. And they get into a fight. And initially, it looks like Wee Mon is conquering the area for China. But once he gets control of the kingdom, he actually goes, you know what? I could just call this place my own. And so King Jun gets run out, and Wee Mon becomes the king of the Kojoseon kingdom. I mean a lot, and I mean a lot of animation is produced in North Korea. Children's shows, etc., about every big channel out there. Really? I was unaware of that, Grethar. Is it because of cheap labor? That would be an interesting angle to look at. Do you know any of the show's names specifically? Like a show that I would know? If it's Kailu, that's another reason to hate Kailu. Is it Dora the Explorer? I don't hate Dora. I just don't like the way that the show goes. It's like, do you see the Gundam? Where's the Gundam? ¿Dónde es la Gundam? There it is. Do you need more reasons to hate Kailu? No, but now that I don't like them, it's already easy to just pile on. The North Korean animation wiki page is disappointing. Oh, that's unfortunate. South Korean studios back a lot of Japanese and American studios, but North Korean studios generally back non-US, non-Japanese studios. I see. There is a comic written and drawn by Guy Leslie. Might remember the name wrong, but he worked there and then wrote that later in his experience. Guy Leslie sounds really familiar, but I at the moment I don't know who that might be. I'll have to look that up later. I'll make myself a note. I don't have a pen. Somebody mentally note. If I put it in my mental notes, it'll disappear. All right, Wee Mon. He becomes king of the Kojoseon kingdom, and this is going to last for about 3 generations, because it turns out that the Han dynasty has its own troubles and it's expanding in a different direction, mostly down in the south. But by the time we get to a guy named Han Wudi, the jig is up. I think it's Kingdom of Silence, but it could have been said about Saudi Arabia anyway. Did anybody watch Shimon Khashoggi dissident documentary? I have not. People are good at publicly saying how bad North Korea is, but then have no issues hiring them to do kids shows. Yeah, that seems like a bit of a thing, but in the same way, Our country says that countries do things like, violate human rights, and then we still buy oil from them. So I don't know how much America can really point fingers at hypocrisy for the world. Look at me getting on a soapbox, backing down from the soapbox. Anyway, Han Wu-Di. Han Wu-Di is this guy. And Han Wu-Di was the most powerful ruler on the face of the earth while he was alive. He was beating the mess out of everybody. This guy had expanded the borders of Han Dynasty China by almost 100%. And he remembered that there were some people up in Korea that were actually supposed to be ruling that area for him. Oh yeah, super cool hat. Awesome hats. Always with the beads so that you don't look directly at the emperor, right? But he can still see where he's going. Anyway, so Han Wu-Di is going to show up in 109. And the grandson of Wei Mon is going to be king at that time in the Gojoseon Kingdom. And by the way, this is sometimes referred to instead of Gojoseon Kingdom at that point as Wei Mon Kingdom. But anyway, Han Wu-Di, he's a big, powerful dude. He shows up, and in 109, he begins to attack. And in 108, he basically wipes out the Gojoseon Kingdom. So the Gojoseon Kingdom is gone. Guy Delisle. Okay. Opening that for later. Thanks, Graythar. So you can't see that he has pox scars. Oh, burn. Was that for the Emperor's protection so no one could identify him when he went to the local brothels? Oh, no, dude. He didn't go to the brothels. The brothels came to him. He has an entire harem of whatever he wants, pretty much. You like articles, Theory Bear? It's good to be the king. I found a source that said North Korean studio employs about 1,600 animators. More than Pixar. Holy moly, that's crazy. Guy Delisle, Pyongyang. A Journey in North Korea. Oh, it's a comic book, graphic novel. Awesome. I definitely have to put that on the list. I'm always interested in the graphic novels that aren't, that actually tell like true stories. Like Persepolis, the 2 volumes of Persepolis are excellent. I don't know if you all have read Persepolis. It's about a young girl who grows up in Iran during all of the changes of the government in Iran. And there's also Mouse, which I know seems a bit fanciful because the characters are animals. But Mouse tells a true story of the Holocaust. And that kind of stuff really gets me going. There's an interesting book by a guy named Trevor Getz, who I sort of know indirectly. It's called Abena and the Important Men. That tells a story of an African woman who basically tries to prove her innocence and freedom in a court of law in a slave colony. It's pretty interesting stuff. So the animated Persepolis is pretty good too. I have seen that once and I remember liking it, but I need to watch that again. The Persepolis is just good across the board. That's how you know you're emperor when the brothels come to you. Is a good read, found it in the library. Awesome. Haven't yet been on your read list for a while. Yeah, it's all good stuff, and I really appreciate that that graphic novels are being used to teach, not just to entertain. Oh, the puppy's here. Anybody want to see the puppy? Okay. Hey, you come and see me? Hello. See the people? Oh yes. Hello. What you doing? You just come in and check out on me? Yeah, you look right here? Hey. Look right here. Oh, there's the people. Yeah. Oh, such a sweet puppy. What you doing? You just checking in? Shedding all over me? Good gracious. Oh, you want to look out the window. Okay. Oh, the puppy. She's not been eating very much lately. And I don't know if it has anything to do with me not eating, but she just hasn't been eating very much lately. Hey, Kofix, welcome, welcome. Oh, yes, the sugars. You love dogs so much. You have two, and the one you found two after already having your Doberman. Hey, Tuna, welcome. Tuna, I know that you came in right in the middle of the raid, but if you had come in like 10 seconds earlier on Tuesday, you would have heard me say, Tuna, if you're watching this on the VOD, I'm sorry you missed the show. Dog solidarity. Whoop. We're talking about history of Korea. Yeah, we are currently talking about a period of time right around 109 and 108 BC, where Han Wudi from China sends forces over into Korea and destroys the Kojoseon Kingdom. I did. It was a good show. And I hope that you get a chance to watch it, because I know that you were the one that suggested History of Archaeology, so I was really hoping that you'd be able to make it. But welcome now. We're always happy to see you whenever you show up. So what happens when China shows up? Well, China doesn't like this idea of Korea being unified in one sort of large kingdom. So what Han Wudi does is breaks Korea up into what he calls commanderies. And very basically, this is like a military state. And there are four... got to step out for a work meeting? Oh, yeah. Autumn, have a good one. Thanks for dropping by, man. Hope the work meeting goes well. Okay, so here's what is left behind. And these are called the four commanderies. You have Xuantu, you have Leilang, Lintun, and Jinfan. And now you see this thing down here as well that's just called Qin. And I guess it's now time to talk about what these commanderies are and what Qin is. So, about these commanderies. Well, here's the thing. Han Wudi goes back home, right? The Chinese military sort of goes back home, and he leaves these people in charge there. But that big region down in the southern part of Korea, the other part of the peninsula, was called Qin, and it was sort of kind of a loose organization, sometimes referred to as the Qin Confederacy, where there's a whole bunch of really small city-states. And sometimes they're called statelets, which I don't necessarily like as a word. I think that's abusing the English language. You can just throw let on the end of it, and it means small. I also don't like the use of the word gate as a prefix for scandal, but we're not going there. Anyway, there are things about English that I just don't like. So these loose confederations of smaller city-states, they're going to have contact with China clearly, especially to the Chinese left behind to run these confederacies. But we really don't know what the boundaries look like outside of those commanderies. And just to be completely honest, we're not 100% certain what the boundaries of the commanderies were. The map that I just showed you is a loose estimation. But what we do know is that there were some ties in Qin to the Kojoseon Kingdom, because when Weimon and King Jun were fighting, King Jun actually fled down into the south and pretty clearly set up some sort of rule in some of the southern cities. And a lot of the people that are going to come out of the later states that form down in the Qin Confederacy are going to claim that they are descended from King Jun. And they're going to have this sort of historical line to call back on. Your favorite scandal is Gategate? Yeah. And Watergate, the scandal about water? I don't know how many of you all are a fan of British TV, but there is a show called That Mitchell and Webb Look. And there's a skit that talks about that gate as a prefix, and it's quite funny. I won't try to recall it at the moment, but if you haven't seen that, just Mitchell and Webb Watergate, and it will come up on YouTube. But what if there's a scandal about water? What would you call it? Aquagate? Well, that's no good. Anyway, British TV, never heard of it. Thanks, Joey. Who constantly refers me to British TV that I didn't know existed. Are we the baddies? I love that entire show. Is just full of greatness. I think that the entire first and second season is up on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's absolutely side-splitting funny. My favorite skits that recur are the adventures of Sir Digby Chicken Caesar, who is a homeless man who is almost always blitzed out of his brain and thinks that there's a conspiracy out to get him. Whole thing's on Amazon Prime. Oh, well, there we go. I did not know that. Now I'm going to have to go watch it again. I actually started watching it, and I don't think I got all the way through with it again. I've been very scattershot on keeping up with TV stuff. Anyway, that's enough pop culture. Let's talk about history. So, the Qin Confederacy is going to hang out down here in the southern part of the peninsula. Let me show you this map again, just because I'm referring to things and then talking about stuff later. And they're mostly going to be able to avoid all of the Chinese invasion stuff that's happening up here in the north. But I do want to go ahead and point out here that what is interesting about this is that we're already starting to see a little bit of a difference between the northern part of Korea and the southern part of Korea. And this is going to be evident even if we go back to our Kojoseon Kingdom and Jin Kingdom. We can already see that there's a little bit of a northern sort of center of gravity and a southern center of gravity. And I wanted to mention that because I think that a lot of people that know a little bit about the Korean War might have just assumed that at the end of the Korean War, they just randomly picked the 38th parallel and said, this is the boundary. That's actually not too far away from existing cultural boundaries inside of historic Korea. So there's some thought that actually went into the 38th parallel decision. That's what I'm trying to get at. Pop culture is history, just a young version of it. Indeed, sometimes very, very young. Okay, so what are we to do with these Chinese commanderies in the north? I would like to point out that in certain circles of Korean scholarship, aka anything that comes out of North Korea, it is flatly denied that these four commanderies ever existed. The North Koreans deny that China ever had control of North Korea. They say that, oh, those commanderies that they were talking about, those were up here. Those were way up here. Those were not down in Korea. No, Chinese people never had direct control of the northern part of Korea. Didn't happen. Nobody outside of North Korea really disputes this. We'll just say it that way. It's not to know some thought. It's nice to know that some thought went into some part of the Korean UN police action that was totally not a war. Yeah, totally not a war. No war was declared. North Korea disputes history, shocked face. Right. Shocked Pikachu, exactly. So what's going on up in these commanderies? Well, it's never as solid as China would like for it to be. There are some pretty clear Chinese influences that happened during this period of time, especially the introduction of iron. I'll show you some of that in just a second. But the local Korean people do not enjoy being under the control of the Chinese. There's also the group of people over here on the steppe who we've spoken about before in past discussions, the Xianbei, who clearly had some influence over in this area, either directly with people moving into the area or at least with trade, because we start seeing some artifacts in this area pop up that come from trade with the steppe. And here I'm saying steppe like this, like the flat, high area of steppe. So they did have a lot of influence on local culture, though. And one of the things that the Chinese are going to really sort of bring with them that is going to be beneficial in the long run to the Korean people is better ironworking techniques. So what we have here are a collection of several different iron tools. You can see some axes, and these are axes, and this is a knife, and this is some farming implements, a hoe and an adze, and some spears. And you see some razors here. This is stuff that is going to be not necessarily introduced into Korea because they were already doing some work with iron before the Chinese showed up, but this is definitely going to put them on a substantially faster path. They're going to get a lot of technique from the Chinese, and there's also going to be a little bit of bleed over when it comes to just general Chinese culture, especially religious culture. So once these 4 commanderies set up, things are going to start shifting a little bit, and this is mostly going to have a direct effect on the people that are in northern Korea, but there's also an effect on the people that live down in the south. This loose confederacy of the Chen is going to change, and they're going to end up forming a group called the Samhan. All right, so Samhan is the 3 kingdoms, and this particular era is referred to as the Proto-3 Kingdom period, or the Samhan period, which also, by the way, brings us to our title for the night. Samhan style. There are levels to that, by the way. I enjoy how many levels there are to that, and I hope that by me mentioning a Korean pop song, it is now stuck in your head. Stop making fun of North Korea. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have had hamburgers. Oh yeah, they made hamburgers, and they discovered a unicorn skeleton. Yep. Anyway, about what year is this? This is about 108 to about 100 BC. You're going to start seeing these areas down here in the south begin to organize. So this little guy up here, the Dongye, never particularly becomes a kingdom, and they're referenced because they were independent from the 4 commanderies, but they're going to get swallowed up pretty quickly by these guys down here, the Chenhan. Then you're going to see the Mahan, and then you have the Byunhan. So these 3 right here are going to be what we refer to as the Proto-3 Kingdoms, or the Samhan period kingdoms. And why are they doing this? Why are they suddenly clustering together? And the answer is that there is almost a palpable understanding that the Chinese might try to expand further south into the peninsula. Han Wudi was beating everybody up. The Chinese territory was growing larger almost all the time, and nobody down here in southern Korea wanted to end up like the guys up in North Korea under the control of the Chinese. So you're going to start seeing them form a little bit more tight union instead of the loose confederacy that they had been in, and you're going to start seeing people move towards becoming a little bit more king-like. And this is going to be mostly tighter clusters of cities, and I said king-like on purpose because one of the things that we're not really going to see even in the Samhan period, you're not going to see ruling dynasties in the south. You're going to see sort of these cities that have ruling elite, and the leadership position sort of moves back and forth between various elite families based on circumstance, intermarriage, that sort of stuff. But you don't have sequential dynasties that are being set up that pass down from father to son, father to son. But you're also going to start seeing iron, and they're going to show up with iron weapons down in the south. This is going to be a direct response to contact with the Chinese and the four commanderies up north. And this is what's going to kick off the actual Three Kingdom period, which is sort of the end goal of what we're going to be talking about tonight. The Three Kingdoms. Three Kingdoms. What is the riddle of iron? So if the riddle of steel is to destroy your enemies and hear their women wailing behind you, maybe the answer to the riddle of iron is to punch your enemies in the face and hear their women laughing at them in the background. Does that work? Didn't you know that Kim Jong-il invented the hamburger? Oh yeah, I knew that. I also know that when North Korea went to the last World Cup that they were in, that Kim Jong-il was sending them telepathic messages. The coach would stand looking towards North Korea and receive telepathic messages to crush your enemies and see them driven before you and to hear their lamentations. So to punch your enemies in the face, to see them roll on the ground before you, and to hear the humiliations of them by their women. That works for the riddle of iron. And they all hole in ones all the time. These guys are like amazing. Yeah, they do all kinds of stuff. And don't go to the bathroom. I have heard that they don't poop. They just run super efficiently and they use 100% of everything. The no pooping thing is actually not something that they invented. There are a lot of particular beliefs in certain very, very religious sects of Christianity that believe that some of the saints didn't poop. Which leads me to a really interesting conversation that I had with a group of students one time. For those of you that do not know very much, I've studied religion extensively, and I have studied all sorts of religions, basically everything that I can get my hands on. And I've read all of the scriptures that I can get my hands on to the extent that I can read them. I haven't read all of the Vedas. I could read all of the Vedas, but it's like thousands and thousands of pages, and some of it is just kind of torturous. Anyway, the shortest verse in the Christian New Testament is a verse that says Jesus wept. The story is that Jesus went to see his friend who had died, and Jesus is looking at like the grave of his friend and got sad, and he wept. So Jesus wept. And in this particular conversation, I sort of used that as a pun. And in the conversation, we were talking about being, there's a particular word for it, indefilable, or I can't remember what the technical word is, but I was like, I mean, Jesus pooped. And I thought that was a great point, that, you know, he was a guy, right? And they did not take that they didn't like that. Aren't there holy relics that are saint poop? Yes. So this is only certain saints and in certain views of things. Jesus was fully man. That includes pooping. See, that's what I was trying to get at. Like, he was a guy, right? He pooped. They did not care for my line of argument. Anyway, some people would think that would be blasphemous, but I think it's okay. I mean, if you're going to say that he's a dude, dudes poop. That's what happens. I've had stomach issues, but I won't go into that. Anyway, too much information. Anyway, the Three Kingdoms era. There are going to be three kingdoms that develop down in the southern part of what used to be the Qin area, and there's going to grow out of those Samhan period groups. And it's pretty hard to find an accurate map for them originally. So the closest map that I could find that shows all of them roughly where they would have probably been at the beginning is this one. And even so, I don't really like this one because this one is from much later in the period of time that we're going to be talking about. This is probably 400 years after the period we would be discussing right now. But again, if you go try to look up maps of this territory, you're going to see like, oh, here's the Shilla, but here's them at their extent in like 400. And I'm like, no, I want to see them at the beginning in like 57. And like, no, you can't see it. Anyway, the three big kingdoms are in the pink and the green and the blue. Now, the Gaia is still a confederacy at this point. They are not really organized into a kingdom, but they're shown here because they did have some territory. But these are the three kingdoms. What we have here in the blue, again, is the Shilla. And I know it looks like Scylla, but you say it with an SH, Shilla. And the pink one, which is the big one, which, again, it's not as big when it first starts off, is the Koguryu. And then the green one is the Pekcha. And I know that's spelled with a B, but you say that with a P, and the AE makes it sound like eh. And then this is like the ch sound, so Pekcha. Anyway, let's talk about these a little bit in a row. Oh, that was the intro screen. I didn't need to click on that one. My clicking is slightly off tonight. I don't know what the click I'm doing. So let's talk first about the Shilla. And I'm spelling it like Shilla. All right, so who were these people and where did they start off? Well, originally, the Shilla Kingdom was a city called Saroguk, just like Bulgogi. Yes, there we go. There's a city named Saroguk, which was in the that sort of proto-Samhan period area called Chinhan, and there's a great story of how that city got founded. So, according to the story, there were 6 wise men that all had areas, like they all had the valley to themselves. So each one of them had a valley, and they sort of lived here in this little city. And they all got together one day, and they're like, we need to find a king because everybody else is unifying, and if we don't unify, they're going to come beat us up, which is, again, very clearly referring to the concept of unification as defense against larger foes like the Chinese. And they go, but we don't have a king. Who would be our king? One of us? And they're like, oh, no, we're already old men, so who's going to be the king? And they're like, well, we should pray to the gods to deliver us with a king. And so they all went out and they prayed to the gods. And one day they were walking and they saw this horse that kind of came down from the sky. And they're like, okay, that's weird and unique. And hey, Vern, what's up? Welcome. So this horse then lays an egg, and they're like, that's odd, but okay. And then the egg hatches, and it has a radiant child inside. And they're like, okay, that's odd, but here's a child. And they figure it out pretty quickly. Oh, this is clearly from the gods, and we are supposed to use this. This is supposed to be our king. And they're like, well, I mean, who's going to follow the rule of a child? And they're like, no. We have to raise him in our way, and then he will know our way, and he will be a great king. So they're like, oh, okay, so let's raise this kid. And so they start raising him, and they name him, and no, I can't spell and talk at the same time. And now you're like, oh gosh, how are you going to say that? It's Hyukgusa. It's Hyukgusa. Radiant Child is so Keith Haring. So Hyukgusa is the king, but of course he's a child, and they raise him. And so when he gets of age, they're like, oh, wouldn't it be great if he had a wife? And they're like, yeah, that would be cool. And so then they go out one day and they see a dragon flying by, and the dragon like loses a rib, and then the power of the magic turns this into a woman, and they're like, hey, look, this is like dragon woman marries radiant star child kid, so Hyakusa go marry this woman. And that's supposedly how the state of Shilla gets founded. And Hyakusa is considered the first king, and he rules from 57 BC until 4 AD. Is that going to fit? What is it about men? What is it about women and ribs? There we go. Arranged marriage is typical. So here we go. What is he going to do? Well, the first thing that he does is establish himself a capital. And you need a good capital. And the capital's name is Gyeongsang. And you got to build a big palace. So he builds a big palace. And when he's doing all of this stuff, one of the commanderies, the Chinese commanderies up north, hears about the growing power of this king. And they're like, okay, well, we need to go stop this guy. And this is the... Ribs are awesome. I totally get the whole mortal damnation for a rib thing. Oh, goodness. So the Lelang commandery, the Chinese commandery that's up in the north, hears about the Shilla, and he's like, and they're like, we need to go beat these guys up. So the Lelang show up, and they're going to put these people down. But the story goes that Hyakusa was such a great ruler that when the Lelang Chinese invaded, they saw the sort of the majesty and the just generic and general goodness of this kingdom, and they're like, we can't attack these people because they are good people. And so they go away and depart. Also, hey Junk, how's it going, man? Welcome. Marrying a rib might be a bit much. I had some ribs last week. They were quite tasty. And the puppy enjoys it when I get ribs, because then she also gets ribs as a special treat, which are her favorite treats ever, are the actual bones of the rib. So here we go. Repels the Chinese. The Chinese go back away. The other sort of Samhan confederations are going to hear about this growing kingdom of Shilla, and they're going to make contact with the Mahan, who are going to initially be very offended that the Shilla will not bow down to them. So I don't know why you're telling me this is wrong. Anyway, so the Mahan, this confederacy of smaller city-states, one of the Samhan kingdoms, sends representatives to Hyakusa, and they're like, you need to send us tribute because we are greater than you. And he's like, nope, I'll send you a diplomat, though, and we can establish diplomatic relations. And this is a great affront to Mahan. And the story goes that initially when they saw the diplomat coming instead of tribute, the king of Mahan wanted to kill the ambassador and send his head back as a message to this upstart. But after discussion, they were like, you know what? That guy actually sounds okay, so we're going to make friends with them. Now, of course, all of these stories are sort of from the Shilla perspective, and they're sort of building up the inherent goodness of Hyakusa, who's supposed to be like this great king because he's descended from the gods, right? Well, I guess he's not descended from the gods. He was born from an egg that a horse developed out of the sky. So there we go. I'm doing okay. I'm a little bit hopped up on caffeine. I'm a little bit sleep deprived, and I could probably do with another meal, but I'm getting over a stomach bug. But I'm doing okay. I'm in a groove now. I feel like the momentum is going, which probably means that as soon as I sign off, I'm going to collapse and go back to sleep for another 14 hours. I like the cut of his jib. I think I'm just hungry. Oh yeah, Tuna's like, no, I want Korean food. No, I want ribs. Korean ribs. Solved. Problem solved. Boom. Anyway, so one of the things about Hyokusa, we won't go all the way through to the AD period today because we're like we're trying to stay in the BC period. But it is interesting to know that the modern people inside of Korea who have the family name Park actually trace their lineage back to this guy. He is seen as the primogenitor of all of the Park families. There's a whole, is it Bach or Pak or Park? Anyway, so yeah, I slept 14 hours yesterday. I slept from 3:45 in the afternoon until about 10, and then I woke up for just a little bit, long enough to brush my teeth and floss and drink some water, and then I went right back to bed and slept until my alarm this morning. Yeah. I missed all of yesterday afternoon. It's fun times when you get sick, right? Anyway, his son takes over after he dies, and this establishes the ruling family inside of the Shilla. And by the way, we will talk about Korea more in future. Once you get sort of on the board, you get in the rotation as it is. So this is the setup for that. All right, let's talk about the Pekja. Okay, so who are these guys and where do they come from? Well, originally, they're going to be part of the region that's under Chinese control, but they're also going to have part of the territory that was originally under the Qin. So they're sort of straddling the line here. You've been barking up that tree for 35 years. Maybe he'll listen to someone new. Yeah, KP and Mac constantly bug me and try to get me to take care of myself. I'm a stubborn guy. I'm a stubborn dude. And I know it. Anyway. Oh, I skipped a whole one. I skipped an entire... Oh, let's back up. Let's not do them right yet. Let's do them in chronological order like I had intended to do them. And now you're going to tell me that this is spelled wrong because you're going to want me to space that out, but I'm not gonna. This is Koguryo. Where do they start, and who do they come from? Well, the old Gojoseon kingdom that was shattered by Han Wudi and then put under these four commanderies, again, still has a very high native Korean population. So the Koguryo are going to be the remnants of those, and they have a leader, a mythological origin guy. Did I close my images? No, there we go. Boom. This guy. This guy's name is Jomong. I'll type this here. Oh, and you can't see me typing it. Haha. I could type whatever I wanted to right now. You'd never be able to see it. Unless I switch over here. Anyway. Jomong. At least he's got a wife and a dog. They should help. You'd think, but I haven't seen much improvement. I take care of myself when I have to. I just don't like getting slowed down when I'm sick. I'm one of the tough it out. Wife and dog, I thought you had to choose. My dog is not my dog. The dog that lives in my house is my wife's dog. So it's a combo deal. It's wife and dog or neither. So Koguryo, they're the scattered remnants of Gojoseon, and Jomong here is a noble inside of this confederacy. No one can live up to a dog's expectations. They just love you anyways. Aw. And life learns to live with the disappointment. And my wife learns. Yeah, I married way up. I have incredible salesmanship qualities, and I convinced someone way out of my league to marry me. So, and I say this to her all the time, and for some reason she's still convinced. So, there we go. Anyway, so supposedly, Jumong's parents were also gods, and they were the gods of the sky and the god of the river, who had a child, Jumong here, who is supposedly very gifted in many martial skills. He's especially good at the bow, but he also has brothers, and he doesn't really get along very well with some of his brothers, and he decides that he's going to sort of strike off on his own and set up his own kingdom. And he does this with one of his younger brothers who's not going to inherit the throne. But can he play the saw? I don't know. Maybe. He's born from gods. So, go figure. Maybe. So initially he and his younger brother go off to form kingdoms, and his brother's kingdom falters and falls to the Han, and so then Jumong has to go and sort of bail his brother's kingdom out. Anyway, he ends up with this sort of insulated little region that is going to form the sort of the nucleus of Goryeo, and he's going to build himself a big capital at a place called Jolbon, and he's going to start using his military skill to unify the region around him. And he's seen as a very martial guy. He's all about fighting. He's really good at battle tactics, and he's going to be very, very successful early on. He rules from 37 BC till 19 AD. So Jumong, leader of the first leader of the Goryeo, who are the second of the three kingdoms. Now, let's talk about the Baekje, because I wanted to do them in chronological order. I thought about doing them in alphabetical order, but that didn't make sense to me, because that would put the youngest one first. So Baekje. So who is this guy? Well, here's the thing. They are founded by a guy named Oncho, who was originally one of Jumong's sons. So his dad had this big... Excuse me, stomach is getting me. He has this big kingdom, and he's not really going to inherit some of it, so he's going to go further south, down here into the sort of the region down here that was part of the southern commanderies, but was also part of what would have been the Mahan kingdom of the Samhan period. Right around here is where he's going to go. And he gets down there, and he starts fighting, and is able to conquer a territory fairly easily. Part of this is because he's fighting people that are not as organized as him. The region that was under the Chinese commanderies was a lot more centralized than the southern part of Korea was. So when he's going down into the south, he's got a little bit of an easier path towards control. He's going to start conquering most of Mahan, and then he's going to even jump over into what used to be Chinhan, and he's going to conquer some territory over there. And that is going to establish the last of the three kingdoms. And he is going to rule himself from 18 BC till 28 AD. And this is going to set us up for, once again, the three kingdoms. So let me show you that map one more time. And we can sort of go through this now that we know people. So originally we were talking about the Shilla. This is where Hyokasa was founding his kingdom. This is the kid that was born out of an egg, and his kingdom right down here. Again, the Goryeo kingdom that you see right here is much, much, much larger than it would have been when it was founded. It would have been a smaller little area, sort of right around in here. This map shows the Korean Peninsula in 375 AD. So again, this is about 450 to 500 years after what we're talking about. So originally the Goryeo kingdom is going to be smaller and over in here. And here we see the Pekja, which was actually a lot larger right here than it would have been at the beginning as well. It would have been sort of confined to kind of this region right in here. It had not expanded all the way down here into the south yet. But with those three kingdoms combined, we have made the three kingdoms of Korea. And that is going to be where we end tonight. Well, that's going to be where my prepared portion of the night ends. But if you all have questions about this material, you're welcome to ask them. If you have any channel points that you want to redeem, you are now welcome to do so. Not that you couldn't have done that earlier, but you can also do that now. With my three kingdoms combined, I am Captain Samhan. Did anybody sing Gangnam Style? Did anybody get it stuck in your head? Horse eggs and dragon ribs. That's right, boys. Horse eggs and dragon ribs. Gangnam Style was such a great video. I like the music video more than I like the actual song. Nobody sang Gangnam Style when I said Samhan Style. That's just unfortunate. I try to get songs stuck in your head, but I guess that doesn't always work. I'll laugh anyway. All right. So, anybody got anything else? Anybody want to know what's going on in the news, or want to see the puppy again, or want to ask random questions, or want to just hang out and chat? I mean, I'm here, and I've got about that much more coffee left, so you should write one. I should write one what? An origin myth? You could be the Weird Al of history. Oh, man. Vern, you don't know how much I would love that. I know that I've mentioned that in stream before, but I will reiterate that when I was in high school, I really wanted to be the successor to Weird Al. So much so that I began writing parodies of songs, and the parodies of the songs that I wrote were like I called them written by Weird Bob Yankovic. So like I started calling myself Bob Yankovic and Weird Bob, and I ran with that for a long time. 3 favorite Korean foods. I'm a capable rapper. You should totally do parodies. I have done so many parodies. I have written so many parodies. Favorite 3 foods. That's hard. I have not eaten Korean food nearly as much as I would like, just to be honest. I like kimchi. What is it? Kimchi jjigae. That's like the soup kind of stuff. That's like a stew. The kimchi stew. That's kimchi jjigae. I like that stuff. What's the rice thingy with the egg in it? It's like beef and rice. Bibimbap. I like bibimbap. And I guess I'd have to go with bulgogi. I mean, you can't really mess up shrimp, right? Pork, pork and shrimp. Bibimbap, yeah. Anything that has pork or shrimp in it, I'm pretty much down with. The problem is that the only time I've ever been in Korean restaurants is when I'm out of town, because I've never lived in a city that's had one. So I've had Korean food in Washington, D.C., and just to be honest, I really don't know what I got. Because I let one of my friends order for me because he was much more familiar. But I think I ended up with bulgogi. Is that like the grilled stuff that's really, really thin, and then you eat it with like vegetables? Come to LA, we'll go to Korean barbecue. See, I've never been to the famous Korean barbecue places that everybody. Kimchi jjigae is I know that one. Like, I know that one off the top of my head because that's like kimchi stew, right? And it's got like shrimp in it, and I like that stuff. That's probably my favorite because I know it off the top of my head, and that's the first one that I could go to. Bibimbap is probably my second. Galbi, is galbi just the ribs? Is that like just like the ribs, grilled ribs? Because I've had Korean ribs once before. And if so, that's, yes, I do like the Korean barbecued ribs. Galbi is the ribs. Okay, yeah, that has to be on the list. And we'll probably put that as 2. So, no, actually, I probably like those more than the kimchi jjigae. So galbi is probably first, kimchi jjigae, and then the bibimbap. There we go. So that took a little while to get me around because I don't know the words very well. Pho is Vietnamese, isn't it? Oh, I've missed a lot of chat here. Hold on a second. What can you tell me about the evolution of Korean swords? Quite a bit, actually. How much do you want me to talk to you about Korean swords? Pretty sure Shane...
Are you not entertained?
I am not entertained. Is that not why you are here? Luna in Japan? Thank you so much for that raid. And welcome, Luna's friends. How are you all? If you don't know, my name is Shane. I teach history in college here where I live, and I stream history stuff. And tonight we are talking about Korean history. How was your stream, Luna? What were you up to? For those of you that do not know, Luna is a streamer here on the Twitch, and you should go give Luna a follow. You're curious how connected their sword tradition is connected to China. Early on, a lot. Now, by about this period, especially the ADs, probably like AD 200 or so, they're going to start diverging pretty dramatically and start pushing out most Chinese influence and establishing a sort of standardized Korean style of militant activity. Their martial arts are going to differ at that point, and their sword styles are going to start differing. And they're going to have the, kind of the straight sword, but they're also going to have that sort of big, sort of chunky bladed knife thingy. Currently in Vegas going to school. Also, sorry, not sure what's up with your headset, but you can't hear me. Oh my goodness, that stinks. So I have to send some types and some love to our friend Luna. Let me see what all I missed up here. Capable rapper, Weird Shane. Strange Shane. Thai Basil from Lowe's. Nice. By the way, can we cover the Kamal Khashoggi thing? I mean, what do you want to talk about? The Saudi royal family had him killed, and they chopped his body up and put it in a suitcase, and then they lied about it. And it's proven that they lied about it, and then America did nothing but say that was a really bad thing to do. It's plebe of me, but Korean fried chicken is nice. It's never plebe to say fried chicken is okay. You've had dinner in New York City's Koreatown. You had something with octopus, but you ordered it because it was pretty. Nice. Appreciated. Gogogi's chicken. Okay. Luda's not in Japan. She's in Chain's Korea stream. Surprised your streamers with Breath of the Wild. Nice. Plus 10 pro streamer points for capture card. This is setting a terrible precedent, like partying Matt Gates. You didn't get a pardon, and there's not necessarily something, and everything about him is still pending. Nothing has been proven. There are some allegations. I'm not trying to say that those allegations aren't legitimate. I'm just saying that I prefer to err on the side of innocent until proven guilty. And then when he's proven guilty, he better own up to it. If he's proven guilty, he might not be proven guilty. We don't know yet. I would want the same treatment were I in that position. I don't know enough about the scenario because the investigations that are going on are actually in the FBI. So pretty deep stuff. My capture card hijacked your speakers. All fixed. Hey, Luna, there we go. Okay, but the Saudis did kill that Washington Post. Yes, they did. It's been proven conclusively that the Saudi Arabian royal family, including the guy that is sort of their crown prince guy that's second in charge, gave the order and organized a hit squad that caught Jamal Khashoggi in Turkey at the embassy and killed him and chopped him up and then put him in a suitcase and then snuck him out and disposed of the remnants. He doesn't look guilty. He does look guilty. Admittedly, that is not admissible in court. I mean, I look guilty. I look guilty as crap, and I didn't do anything. Who is innocent asks for pardon? Lots of people. Everybody asks for pardons just in case, right? You never know. Pardons are given to people all the time. I don't look guilty. So, Luna, hope you're doing well. Thanks so much. We were actually sort of wrapping up, but if any of you people from Luna's stream, or Luna, if you have any questions about Korean history, I'd be happy to answer those. Normally on stream, what I do is talk about history, and we have fun. We make goofy pop cultural references. Tonight, we've talked about K-pop, and we've talked about Korean barbecue, and I threw some Lord of the Rings stuff in there, and all sorts of stuff. There's a legal argument that accepting a pardon is admission of guilt. Accepting a pardon, yes. Asking for a pardon, Okay, Biden, can I have a pardon? Or Shane, hey, I mean, I'll take one. I don't know what I did, but I mean, if somebody said, hey, here's a get out of jail free card forever for any federal crime you've ever done, I'm like, I don't know what federal crime I've ever done. I mean, maybe I downloaded some songs on LimeWire back in the day. But I could have also downloaded just as many viruses, so who knows? All right, ladies and gents. Mary Jane is still a federal crime. I have no past history with that. I have never smoked weed or done any THC stuff or had edibles or anything like that. I am wonky enough in my sober, natural state. I worry that putting substances into that would make it even worse. Basically, you can't be pardoned for a crime you haven't committed. If you accept it, that means you're admitting to that you did it. I see. Well. Getting Shane high seems like a bad thing. I don't think I want to do that. I appreciate the concern for my good timeness, but I have a good time quite by myself. So, all right, where are we going to go? Let's see. Any last call for what am I saying here? Last call for channel points, questions, concerns, what's going on in the thing, anything like that? What's going on? I'm still upset that I didn't get Gangnam Style stuck in anybody's head. That's going to irk me. You've seen yourself in general anesthesia? Yeah, I've got stories about the time that I got my wisdom teeth out, and I was apparently very, very goofy. Yep. One last call for history. All right. Okay. Well, we're going to go do some raids. Who are we going to go raid? Let's see who's around. Joby Door. We have not raided Joby Door in forever. So we're going to go raid Joby Door. Oh, Joby's got a head cold, so he doesn't have his camera or his mic on. Okay, let's go raid Cryomira then. Boom! Cryomira. Not that I don't appreciate Joby Door, but if he's having a slow night, I don't want to like bombard him with stuff like, hey, Joby, love us! Okay, so we're going to go raid Cryo. Cryo is a wonderful human being and has done a lot to support my stream and has done an amazing amount of promotion for me for free just because Cryo is an awesome human being. So we're going to go raid Cryomera on the Twitch. Thank you all so very, 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 very much for hanging around. I really appreciate all of you, Gundam style and all. You all. Show Cryomira some love when you get there. Our battle cry is adventure. And if you have any of those lovely, lovely adventure hats, if you would, please throw those all into the chat when we get there. Thank you all so very much for hanging out. We are going to do another viewer request stream next week. Take literal care, Shane. Yeah. We are going to do a picture showing stream on Tuesday. We normally don't do viewer requests back to back, but we're going to do one anyway because this one is a little bit different. So I will see you next Tuesday night, and we will look at pictures of cool places that I have been, and we'll talk about them in historical settings. Thank you all so much for hanging out. I appreciate you all putting up with my loopiness. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, my friends, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one.